with a bellyache, I would do a white count, which includes the T cells. Now, if the white count was like 5, 6, 7,000, didn't think anything of it. There's a bellyache, some bad food, maybe a viral infection, you know, the great dumping ground viruses. They even had me thinking that way. But if it was 20,000, I alerted a surgeon. You see, the body creates the T cells when it needs it. If you don't need it, you don't got it. Why would you walk around with a lot of T cells when you've got nothing to fight? And I can tell you one thing we have always known. There is no correlation between severity of disease in AIDS, so to speak, and the T cell count. It doesn't match up, and I'll tell you why. You look a little bit confused when I said the fact that you will not have a high white count unless you have a severe infection. However, which means that if you don't have a high white count, it's not bad. If there's nothing else wrong with you, then I'd say, well, that's normal. Why do you want a high white count? If you got a bad cold, you'd get an elevation in your white count. Now, we know for a fact, it's well documented, that you have individuals who have died with AIDS with elevated T cells. And we have individuals who've been healthy. And when I tell you healthy, I feel sick by comparison at looking at some of these individuals. And they test out incredibly well. The best, healthiest specimens I've seen, the kind that most women say, oh my God, why is he gay? You see? Because he's so good looking and so handsome and so strong and so healthy, you see? They have no white, they have no T cells.
So T cells, you don't count T cells as a barometer of how one is...
No, because yes, you can use it to some degree as a barometer, depending upon the situation, but basically, no, you can't, and I'll tell you why. You know that you can change the T cell count if you worry somebody? Completely established. I worry about these individuals who go in and get these T cell counts one after another, because their whole life is focused on these T cell counts. And when it goes down a little bit, instead of being reassured, which is the way I would interpret it, they get panicky. Now they're really doing damage. And at some point, if they're on drugs, and sometimes even if they're not on anything, but because they've been told they're going to die, like the witch doctors of Africa and elsewhere, these individuals will die because they literally worry themselves to death. It's a crime beyond belief. They're the rare ones, I admit. But the fact is, T cell counts absolutely have no correlation with severity of disease. They can be low because you have wiped out your immune system, and they can be low because you don't need them. That's the important thing to understand. It is not a barometer for anything. And they lie, they lie, they lie, and then they lie some more.
Is this a real case scenario? I go in, I get tested, I am told I'm HIV positive, my T cell count could, I've heard from cancer research, be cut in half. In other words, 50% of your T cells go on strike, the other 50 keep working.
I got news for you. The other scenario can happen too. It can go wild, go way up.
Yeah, but if it goes down because I'm told I'm going to die, isn't that enough to get me on AZT?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And once
First of all, let me tell you something. The CDC that let syphilitics untreated when they had drugs that could have treated, just to observe, this same CDC has already admitted that between 40 and 60% of the cases listed at AIDS were never even tested for HIV. And not that it makes any difference, because the test is meaningless.
So could this scenario also happen? I take AZT, because it is a foreign invader, my T cells will go up.
Yes, they initially do. And that's exactly what happens. When you challenge the immune system, which AZT does, you get an initial rise. But then the AZT begins to do its dirty work and suppresses your entire reproduction of your T cells, and eventually it goes through the floor. Absolutely. That is the scenario. Yes, we're going to try to finish one or two more of your questions.
You say that HIV is somewhere in this. You say that HIV itself is a harmless tissue. It's an innocuous retrovirus. Are you then saying that, as you said earlier about you don't know what safe sex is, that if I go back and report to my gay and lesbian readers, young gay men in particular, and there has been a rise in incidence among young gay men of HIV, again, with the test that you don't believe in.
Right.
But,
Well, it means nothing. Until you give me one single document that proves HIV causes anything, it's meaningless.
okay, but what I need to, here's what I need
Yes.
to know. Is HIV sexually transmitted? Shall I go and report to these young gay men that they need not worry about
Okay.
practicing safe?
HIV, this harmless virus, can be sexually transmitted with incredible difficulty to the point where it becomes meaningless. All right?
And that hasn't been proven.
Right, and that hasn't been definitely proven. By the way, in one of the studies which they were presenting of 25 males where the semen was examined, who were HIV positive, they were able to demonstrate only in 2 out of 25 the virus, and they only found 1 in 1,000,000 cells. That is not disease. There's no way in the world, and especially with a virus, a retrovirus that supposedly is killing off the cells it needs in order to replicate, even if you transmitted 1 virus, and it did kill off, and it was this terrible disease you say it is, there's no way it could cause disease. It's impossible. The lie is so compounded and so idiotic and so unbelievable that you literally have to fight your way out of the maze of these lies. They are all unadulterated lies, and the men responsible for them, and women, belong in jail. Yes, and then we'll get...
Arthur Ashe, Magic Johnson, and Ms. Glazer, the late Ms. Glazer, were all unable to infect their partners, even though they had years of unsafe behaviors.
Rock Hudson's lover.
So there's considerable evidence that this is not the case. You know, they say you have to inject yourself 300 times your IV drug use and you're given 3 needles to protect them. No one says that the drugs might cause AIDS. And in our experience in New York, with certainly the largest population of AIDS cases, there is a clear-cut thing that anyone looking at it will find. The people using drugs develop the diseases called AIDS, and the people who aren't recover their health. It's that simple.
Yes, and by the way, for that population that you're writing for, let me simply point out, again using the government's figures, they say it takes an average of 1,000 acts of intercourse over 10 years in the United States and 10,000 acts of intercourse over 10 years in Africa to transmit the AIDS virus. That's twice a week in the United States for 10 years on an average to transmit the virus. In Africa, that's 20 times a week on an average. And if you know what the bell curve is, there's got to be some individual out in Africa that's doing it 200 times a week. I want to meet that individual. And now let me give you a set of figures which you must produce for your readers, please. The World Health Organization says that the annual conversion rate in the United States for HIV is 1 to 1.5% a year. Now, according to the figures given us by the CDC, there are constantly, for 10 years now, 1 million HIV positives in the United States. Now, that defies all definitions of an epidemic. How does it stay steady at 1 million if this is an epidemic that's going to kill everybody? And by the way, their predictions from 10 years ago were 91% wrong as far as deaths were concerned. Think of that. Now, hold on. 1 to 1.5% per year would average out to 67.5 years for everybody who's HIV positive in the United States today to become full-blown AIDS. That's the annual conversion rate, published not by me, by the World Health Organization. But in Haiti, it's 1/10 that. So if you're HIV positive, I would advise all your readers to go to Haiti. They got a 10 times better chance of survival if they go to Haiti. Because there it will take 1,000 years for everybody, this is World Health Organization figures, for everybody who's HIV positive today to become full-blown AIDS. But hold your hats, hold the presses, young lady. Tell your readers this, and I quote the World Health Organization. Maybe I should put my hand like this while I say it. But they say that in Zaire, you have 100 to 150 times better chance of survival if you're in Zaire than if you live in the United States. In other words, it will take 25,000 years for everybody who's HIV positive today to become full-blown AIDS. Now, I think you ought to urge your readers, all those with compassion and with heart, to take the first plane to Zaire and to stop anyone on the street and ask them, are you HIV positive? And if they answer in the affirmative, I think you owe it to them as a conscientious human being to say, sir or madam, are you aware that in the next 25,000 years you're liable to die of AIDS? Those are government figures, they're not mine. The ridiculousness of it demands that you print those figures, that they give them to your readers.
Isn't it interesting that Africa and Haiti have similar situations in North America and Europe? Although Africa is closer to Europe, you would think that infectious spread would spread closer to the center of the origin.
The answer is very simple. Malnutrition and starvation can lead to death, and at a very variable rate depending upon the malnutrition. But AIDS due to drugs is a much shorter period of time.
And iodocanol, it's a drug from Ciba-Geigy, or no, LaRouche, I think. They've been injecting people in Zaire and Angola and in Haiti with this iodocanol since the 1970s. And this is a hepatic drug. This kills the liver. And the liver is your biggest filter of your blood in the body. And if you destroy the liver, it has more than 500 functions in the body, then you're dead.
By the way, let me throw out, I think, an overall principle to take a look at very seriously from the point of view of disease and death. And this applies to AIDS as it would apply to any disease problem in humanity, and with this I'm going to end. The bubonic plague killed half the population of Europe. The question you must ask and must answer, if you're going to be a rational thinking human being, is why didn't it kill the other half? In the United States, in 1919, 18 million people died of the flu. My question is, why didn't the other 92 million die? The answer to that, and every reporter owes it to their readers, is very simple. The bugs do not cause the disease unless there's a suitable terrain. And so the answer to all disease is not to take a shotgun and blow a human being apart, but to simply prevent the disease to begin with by living at peace and in harmony, not only with your fellow human beings, but with every organism on this planet. And thank you.